All right, that opening montage was pretty cool. Today you will learn if this is the best DJI FPV camera drone. This is the iFlight Bumblebee HD version 2. Hey guys, Felix here with Quadcopterguide, and on this channel I help you get the most out of your drones and other camera gear. I cover camera drones like your typical Mavics, Phantoms, and those kinds of drones, but also FPV drones, and specifically DJI FPV powered FPV drones. All right, let's head into the studio real quick and take a deeper look at the footage and also talk a little bit more about the Bumblebee. When it comes to camera drones, there's two kinds you can choose from. You've got your typical DJI Mavics like this, like the Mavic Air 2, and then the other side, the FPV side, and the iFlight Bumblebee HD version 2 belongs to that. Now, in my Spin Up 2020 presentation, I went through all the different classes of FPV drones, as there are very many of them out there. If you haven't seen that video, you can check it out up here. Very interesting kind of a intro to FPV, and it's actually titled FPV from a camera drone perspective. So if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to check that out. The Bumblebee fits into the Cinewoop class, and Cinewoops are fantastic for flying close to objects or through tight spaces or objects where you wouldn't dream of flying a larger FPV drone or even a camera drone. Due to their design, Cinewoops are very much less likely to damage anything due to their kind of props in these prop guards. They're actually called ducts. And as you can see here on the bottom, you've got carbon fiber with little bumpers. For landing, it doesn't damage anything, or if it were to land on top of something, it wouldn't damage it. And on the top, the props don't extend past the top of these ducts here. And then of course on the sides here, you've got some foam bumpers. So if you were to bump into something, the most that would happen is the foam would just bump onto it. Of course, if you were to fly full speed into something, I guess you could still damage it. But in just the casual flying around, you can pretty much just bump off of things. You could probably even do a wall ride. Now, one of the reasons I did choose the iFlight Bumblebee HD version 2 is actually because it was available as a BNF or bind and fly model or product. What that basically means is you don't have to worry about which components you choose and solder things onto the flight controller yourself. It is ready to go out of the box, ready to bind to your radio, and off you go and fly. Now, this Bumblebee HD version 2 features a full-size DJI Air unit, so if you already have the DJI FPV remote controller, you can fly it with that right out of the box. Now, if you have another third-party receiver option, let's say you are a Crossfire user like I am, you can choose Crossfire receivers on the product page, and they will actually install a Crossfire Nano receiver for you and have it work out of the box as well. That's really cool. Let's talk about some of the features of the Bumblebee. The first being, you don't ever have to worry about having props in your view. No matter what zoom mode or viewing angle you choose on your GoPro, the cameras, both the GoPro and the FPV camera being so far forward, props you never have to worry about. Hey, are you interested in the Bumblebee HD version 2? I've got it linked down below in the description. Check it out for a little bit more detail and more of the technical specs. Inside here, you've got a true all-in-one board, the Sussex A F4 flight controller, and that comes with a 40 amp BL Heli 32 compatible ESC, so that's very nice to see. The frame features T700 carbon, which offers 40% stronger tensile strength compared to the normal 3K carbon you might find on other models. The one-piece frame design is nice. On top and bottom, it's one solid piece of carbon, so there's not a lot of parts, which could cost you rigidity. As mentioned, the bind and fly version has a full-size DJI Air unit on board, and the motors are Xing 1408, and in this case, 2800 kV motors, and this is the 6S version with 3-inch props. The Bumblebee comes pre-tuned from the factory, so you don't have to worry about any of that. You just bind it to your radio and off you go fly. Now, you've heard me talk about the version 2 of the Bumblebee, which this is. What are the differences between version 1 and version 2? Well, for one, the bumpers are new, the EVA and the design has changed. The ducts have also been upgraded. These are a little bit quieter just based on how the air flows through them. They've made them a little bit quieter with the propeller noise. And of course, there's a DJI Air unit on board, and that's because it's called the HD version 2. And to make that fit, they've had to increase the wheelbase 3 millimeters, I believe it is, from 142 to 145, just to make everything fit inside. Now, there is an air unit in there, and you want to be able to get to the SD card and the USB-C port. And without a couple of cool features, you wouldn't be able to do that unless you took the thing apart, and who wants to do that? So to get to the USB-C port, they actually included a 90-degree USB-C adapter. So to plug into the air unit, you just plug your USB-C cable straight down here, and you're hooked into the air unit for updates and whatever else. The SD card, on the other hand, they have moved to the back here. So there's a micro SD extension. So whenever you want to remove the SD card from your air unit, you just pop it out the back. And that is very convenient. Put this guy back in here so we don't lose it. On the back, there's also a USB Type-C port, and that is to access the flight controller. So if you want to hook up your flight controller to your computer and configure things in Betaflight or update Betaflight or whatever you want to do, you can do that through the port in the back. Now it is nice that they're both USB-C, so you're kind of future-proof, and also it's one cable to access the air unit and the flight controller. There's also a iFlight logo down here, which is now illuminated by an LED, and the bottom carbon thickness has been increased from 2 millimeters to 2.5 millimeters. Now what I personally also find a nice touch is that these antennas here are the kind of standard DJI antennas. They're adapted to SMA, and they give you these little TPU thumb wheels. So they're super grippy and your fingers don't slip, and it just makes it easy to add and remove the antennas. And one of the things I like is that they are removable. So if you do fly this thing without a GoPro, for example, it is super flat. And also with a GoPro, removing the antennas just makes it a little bit more compact and easier to put into your backpack or bag. Now, speaking of the GoPro mount, this is the official one from iFlight for the GoPro Hero 567. This one is adjustable, so you can adjust the angle. And that's kind of nice to see which angle you prefer once you fly this thing a couple times. But for Cinewoops, the rule of thumb is kind of 15 degrees. Now, due to the fact that this is adjustable, it is kind of narrow down here. And so I don't know if this is the reason, but in a couple of my clips, I've noticed that there's a tiny amount of vibrations. I don't know if it's a specific throttle level or just flight attitude. It's not always there, but it's just something I've noticed. Sure, you can probably tweak it out with a tune or adjustments in Real Steady, but I have a feeling or a hunch that it's my GoPro mount. And just to the fact that this is kind of skinny down here and there's only so much of the material touching, you can see it's kind of top heavy with this specific mount. So I don't know if that's the reason, but I think I will try another GoPro mount, one that is fixed at 15 degrees. Then I get rid of this kind of chance for it to wobble, I guess you'd call it. And I think that would solve that problem. It's not a big deal, but it's a review, so I figured I'd let you guys know. Now let's talk about batteries. iFlight offers the full send, and this being a 6S model, I have the 6S full send 1300 milliamp hour battery, and it's very compact and fits on here nicely. The included battery strap, of course, and so you can see, let's do it this way. The battery does not take up the whole frame or anything, so it's very nice, and you can adjust it based on your center of gravity. Whenever you put the battery on there, you kind of want to lift it up and hold it in the middle with 2 fingers, and you want it to balance relatively perfectly. Of course, if you have the GoPro on the front, you have to move the battery back a little bit, and if you fly without a GoPro, you can move the battery as well. What's nice is that the battery strap kind of slides front and back, kind of hard to do with one hand here, so whichever kind of configuration you're flying with, you can move the battery strap so it's more centered on the battery. Thought that was a nice touch. Now, if you get the 4S version, you can go with an 850 milliamp hour battery or 1300 milliamp hour battery, or 6S, you can do the same. I went with 1300 just because I know on FPV drones, the flight times are a lot less than kind of the DJI camera drones, so I wanted to get as much flight time as I could. And also with 6S, I have a little bit more power if I need to accelerate out quickly out of a specific type of shot. The full send batteries I'm totally happy with, no complaints at all. The flight time is around 5 to 6 minutes, depending on your flight style. And yeah, it's an FPV drone, so that's just what you're used to. If you're thinking about getting a Cinewoop like the Bumblebee and you want to just use it for these kind of smooth, slow fly-throughs, the 4S version is totally fine. If you want to use it to get a couple of those kind of faster acceleration shots or just fly a little bit quicker through the air or have a little bit more explosive power, then I recommend you get the 6S version. Now, those of you new to the FPV world or you don't know, most of these flight controllers run Betaflight. I mentioned it earlier. Also, Betaflight is the software that runs on your flight controller, and it takes care of adjusting the motors based on the gyro feedback and all that stuff. You don't have to know all the details. But iFlight actually publishes Betaflight dumps, or essentially backups, of future Betaflight versions. So mine, for example, I've had for a little while, and it came with Betaflight 4.1.2. It came tuned from the factory, and I could just put the battery on, bind it to my radio, and go. But if you wanted to upgrade to the current Betaflight version, which is 4.2, for example, through the link also in the description below. You can get to their Google Drive, and on there they've got a dump for Betaflight 4.2. So if you're flying the Bumblebee HD version 2 with Crossfire, with another S-Bus receiver, with the air unit as your kind of receiver, it doesn't matter which setup you have, they've got Betaflight dumps for each of those. So you can download those, update your Betaflight. So I thought it was kind of nice to have after sales support like that, so you can update to the next version of Betaflight, which offers, of course, more features, and then download or import their diff file or import file, and then get it ready to go again, just like a new one would be from the factory with the new Betaflight version. So what did you think of the iFlight Bumblebee HD version 2? Are you flying FPV drones? Have you made the switch over from camera drones yet? Are you considering getting a Cinewoop? What would you use the Cinewoop for if you had one? I've got so many questions. Let me know in the comments down below, and I can't wait to get into a great conversation with you guys down there. Now in the meantime, check out some of these other videos. I've got 2 options here for you. Pick your favorite, give it a watch. And of course, if you haven't already, consider subscribing if you find this information or the channel interesting or useful. Can't wait to see you guys in the next video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.